Hi, John here from Master Buck Products, and here I'm today to demonstrate how the ACCU-Rail works with all crossbows on the market today. The ACCU-Rail is pretty much designed to make sure that your scope on your crossbow when it's sitting on the Picatinny rail is to make sure that the vertical crosshair within the scope itself is perfectly straight. So you're not canting the crossbow in any direction, left or right. That would just give you it would make you very inaccurate. So what happens is that there's two different levels. One for the top of the scope that goes on the vertical turret, and one is made strictly for the barrel of the crossbow. It sits inside the flight groove of the crossbow. Sits on the double rail system and is held down by the string, applying the downward pressure, and you can see that at no time can I move this level at any point. A lot of hunters, crossbow hunters, they like to use torpedo levels or carpenter levels to go across the two different limbs, and that doesn't quite work too well. You want the level centered in the center of the crossbow in line with the Picatinny rail and the scope itself. That just makes it more accurate, and it doesn't move on you. That's the locking ability of it. That's what we want. And the scope level is very simple as well. It sits on the vertical turret, perfectly centered in the center. And you can clearly see here, you have the T. That T, you line it up with the parallel of the scope tube itself. That right there, as you're lining up that T with the side of the scope tube, that's guaranteeing you right now that both levels are parallel to one another. That gives you to make sure that one level is not crooked and one is straight. So you get the perfect sighting in process right there. Okay. Here you can clearly see we have the new Vortex Crossfire 2. I just took the old one off, the one that came with the original crossbow. This is a 10-point Turbo GT. This scope is about 10 years old, 11 years old, so we wanted to change it out, upgrade it, because the Vortex Crossfire 2 is probably the best crossbow scope that you could find on the market for various reasons. The durability, the clarity of the glass, they're scratch resistant. You have a 30mm tube, which allows more light through the eyepiece to the objective, and especially that comes in handy when you're shooting in low light conditions and like early in the morning or later in the afternoon. That's a big benefit. And for $250 roundabout, that's what the retail price is. You can't beat that. You just can't beat that deal. It really is. It's taken the crossbow market by storm, and it's probably the best built crossbow scope that you can get. It's made by Vortex, and you know how they stand behind their products. They do make the best. Okay, so here we have. You can clearly see what the Vortex scope is. Inside the box, it comes with its own mounting brackets. Okay, it has two screws on each side, as compared to other scopes that have the one screw. Okay, so you're guaranteed that you're going to lock it in very tight. Okay, so this particular scope I already mounted and I straightened it. So I'm going to demonstrate to you now how I'm just going to unloosen it. I'm going to unloosen the scope inside the rings, loosen the screws. I'm going to work it around, and I'm going to reset it. I'm going to show you how easy the process is and how to use the ACCU-Rail. I use my wrench to loosen the screws on the scope, and now I'm going to readjust how the scope is inside the rings. This is where I'm going to turn the crossbow with confidence, the scope, move it back, forward and back, and I'm going to purposely misalign the vertical crosshair. That's how confident I am in the ACCU-Rail system, okay? A lot of crossbow hunters are afraid to move their scope at any time. Anytime that when you buy a crossbow in a retail shop that's already set up for you, or if you buy a kit online and they mail it to you and you have to apply the scope to the Picatinny rail, you have to set that scope to your specifications, your characteristics, especially with your eye relief, the distance between your eye and the eyepiece of the scope, and how you rest your cheek on the stock for the cheek well, okay? Everyone is different. So what I like to do is I pick up the crossbow, the scope is moving freely, okay? So I'm going to check my eye relief first before I do anything. I want to try to get that proper distance. Okay, move back. Perfect. Now the eye relief is set. Now I'm going to use the barrel level in conjunction with the scope level. It's going to sit on the vertical turret of the scope. It's going to be perfectly centered, okay, on left and right. And like I said, you have the T on here as well, and that you line up with the straightness of the scope tube. That allows you to make sure that both levels are parallel to one another. You don't want the level crooked or canted in any direction because it won't gonna give you the proper reading. So now I'm going to use the levels. Here I'm going to level the crossbow first and then level the scope to the crossbow. So I'm going to level it first. I'm going to try to get above the view, and I'm going to turn the scope to make sure that each edge of the bubble are within the two lines on the level. That's perfect right there. So now the scope is in line with the barrel is level, and the scope is level. Now I'm guaranteeing you that now that your eye relief is set, now that your scope vertical crosshair is perfectly straight. This system right here is more effective than any door jamb. If you try to line up the scope with a door jamb in on a closet, front door, or anything else, things of that nature, or even a plumb bulb on a string. Those two systems are very antiquated. They are very hard to learn. Levels aren't. They're very easy to learn. Just like you have to tune your compound bow, just like you have to get your scope on your rifle set properly, you have to do the same thing with your crossbow every time you touch it. Each year, I always try to straighten up my crossbow by using this system. Okay, so now my next goal is to make sure it remains level, and I'm going to tighten the screws caddy corner here on the other side. And I'm going to try to maintain the same gap in the rings, and I do not want the scope to roll within the rings. That's very important too. So now that I'm tightening that, perfect. Oh, there we go. It's nice and tight. Once you hear that click, you know you've reached the poundage limit on the screws. You don't want to over tighten your screws because the rings can crush your scope, and that's bad. Whether it's a crossbow scope or a rifle scope. Okay, we are good to go. During that entire screwed down process, the levels are still level with one another, and we are good to go. Now the crossbow is set up. I have my eye relief and a vertical crosshair. You can't beat that system, folks, right? So have the confidence in knowing that the ACCU-Rail system works with your crossbow, and you're going to guarantee yourself 100% you are ready for the woods and to target practice and go after game. So naturally, what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to take it to the range and zero it in and hit the target. So we're good to go, folks. Remember, visit masterbuckproducts.com. The ACCU-Rail retails for $30, and thank you very much for your time.